Well, greetings, friends. Welcome to Soul Empowerment. This is going to be a very special episode, as you're probably, some of you who are on participating right now already know, but I'm not going to share the reason why it's so special, because all of our episodes are special. But this one is special for a special reason, which I'll explain later. But anyway, my name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I'm delighted to be here with my two co-hosts, Nancy and Stephanie. Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself real quick and let's get this ball rolling.
All right. Well, I am Stephanie Benedetto Padovani, which is a mouthful for many. And I am a wild creation coach and a soul storyteller. And just a bit about what that means is that I help coaches, healers, purpose-driven, world-changing entrepreneurs to just really create the change that they want to see in the world through their business in a way that's soul aligned, in a way that lights them up, in a way that's totally full of integrity, their own integrity, right? Like it's in alignment with that. And we even sing. And I'm a soul storyteller because I help them to weave that deep purpose and their sense of mission and their genius gift into a story that reaches those people. So that's a bit about me.
Awesome. Nancy, how about you? Tell us about yourself.
All right. I'm Nancy Stevens, not as much of a mouthful. And I do life and health coaching. I specialize in mindfulness and the lifestyle application of that. I've just founded a new little venture to go along with my coaching program called Vibrant Healthy Women, that helps us to tap into our own energy, our own assets and attributes so that you can live and be authentic and true to who you are, so that that comes energetically out of you into all you do. And I enjoy living this on and off as a coach and in my own life, and just really happy to be here today on the show.
Awesome. And I'm glad both of you are here. It's always so much fun to be here with both of you and to share this space. And, you know, this whole concept of soul empowerment that we've been doing, I guess, since our first episode was in January. And, you know, it's really about helping people to bring the essence of who they really are forward into the world in a way that is in alignment, so that you can really magnify yourself, grow yourself, and become the best possible person you can possibly be. That's really what we're ultimately here to do, is to help you find the pathway for that. And we've already offered a lot of amazing, I guess, ideas and keys and tips and tricks and techniques and all kinds of stuff. And today we're going to be talking about integrity. Now, integrity has all kinds of different meanings for different people. And so I guess the way we should start is to talk about what we mean by integrity. What does that word actually mean? And why is it so important to so many people? So Nancy, I know you had some ideas on this. Would you like to share your ideas, what you think integrity is?
Well, it's a lot of depth to that for sure. From my own journey of finding out who I was in my body, mind, and spirit, the key of integrity really began to play out in many different directions. In a very personal way, for me, it was in what I thought I was going to do, or what I intended to do, and in my action. So it was this meshing of thinking or saying something and involving that by the action of doing it. That began to really shape the fabric for my experience of living with integrity, moving from that internal dream, maybe that thought or shared thought, and weaving that into moving forward into action and showing up, living that, for doing the show. You know, that involves integrity, showing up a week early or on time. So honoring my energy that brings forth a level of positivity, optimism, and draws others to me. That's my unfolding of how integrity shows up in my life, and kind of my understanding of this major concept and attribute of integrity.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Stephanie, what's your perspective on it?
So I spent a little time pondering this, and I actually looked it up, the dictionary definition according to the Google, just to see.
The Google.
Yes, the Google. I'm saying that ironically in the millennial sense of the word, but Anyway, so integrity as defined, according to Google, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. That's the first definition. And the second is the state of being whole and undivided. And I think both of those definitions are interesting to me. For one, there's a lot of subjectivity in there. What is moral? I mean, philosophers have been debating this for thousands of years and trying to come up with some kind of objective standard by which we can say, this is a moral act, this is not. This has integrity, this doesn't. And also this idea of being whole. So all kinds of terrain in here that's interesting to me. But let me come back to my own. What happened? Something froze.
Oh, are you still there? You froze there for a second.
I am still here, and I saw everything freeze. So perhaps that was me, but I've returned. So coming back to the question of what is integrity to me, I like what you said, Nancy, about it seemed what I heard and what you said was something around aligning what you say and what you intend, right, with your actions, and that is integrity. And for me, integrity, it does have to do with values and my own sense of what is so hard to use. Like, do I want to say the word right? What is the aligned course of action in any given situation? So for me, the idea of integrity is it's kind of fluid in a certain sense, because it might change. The idea of the aligned thing or the right thing may be different in different circumstances at different times. So the philosophers would probably give me a really hard time about that, because they want something objective, and I'm not sure that it is. But there's definitely something about aligning within with what your values are and living in accordance with those values. And when we don't, we have cognitive dissonance, right? We have conflict within. We feel conflict inside of ourselves. So integrity helps us to live in a way that has that wholeness that was in that definition, like that I am of one mind. I am in alignment with my beliefs.
Yeah. There's a lot there that both of you have covered. And I guess the first thing I want to talk about really, really quickly is this notion of subjective versus objective. Personally, I don't believe there's any such thing as objectivity. I don't think consciousness can be experienced except with, or anything in life can be experienced except through some level of consciousness. So that consciousness has to have a subjective experience, whatever it might be. That's my starting point. Now, so objectiveness in that sense means basically just something that we all kind of agree on. It's still a subjective experience that we've all kind of come together to agree on. Now, with that in mind, I want to come back to your 2 points about Stephanie, your 2 points about about integrity. Talking about the definition, the code of honor or the code of ethics, and the wholeness. I think these are very, very important pieces. I have my own definition of integrity that really works for me. And to me, it kind of encompasses what you're talking about. But before I go there and give my definition, I want to just come back to something that Nancy said, which has to do with, having words and actions in alignment with one another. And certainly that is important. That's vitally important. I mean, if your words and your actions are in alignment, then we externally can say, oh, this is a person who lives in a place of integrity. But if your words and actions are in alignment, but your thoughts and your emotions are not in alignment with your words and actions, are you still in integrity? This is why I like to bring, and coming to your wholeness piece, Stephanie, for me, integrity is a state of being in which all my thoughts, words, actions, and emotions are all in alignment. They're all pointing in the same direction. And I can amplify that integrity even more if I bring in the key from last month's conversation, purpose. If I'm bringing all those four things in alignment with my purpose, wow, integrity then really starts to take point. And what is purpose? But it's an expression of who I am, which implies a code of ethics, a code of values, a code of who I want to be seen as, how I want to show up. So those 5 elements altogether, thoughts, words, actions, emotions, and purpose, to me, form the core components of integrity. So I'm going to come back to that question. Is it possible to be out of integrity internally while still appearing to be integrity to the public, to everybody else?
I definitely would be, yeah. I mean, because it has to be. I mean, definitely. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's only because, so here's the thing. And we've talked about, how we show up and being authentic and all the rest of it. If I have this idea that I can tell you I'm going to do something and I'm going to go ahead and do it, but my underlying intention is just to make you like me or just to make you approve of me or have a good opinion of me or anything like that, that is really a kind of an out of integrity piece for me. I'm not being honest. I'm not being truthful to who I really am. Do you see what I'm saying? So integrity is a very, very deep and powerful tool. And this is why I put in the subtitle for this episode of Navigate Your Life, because we can use it as a way of determining whether we are in alignment with our purpose or not. That's the beauty of integrity. That's where its real power comes in.
So it's that inner thought work, feelings, emotions, showing up with your outer actions and your spoken word, all of that coming together congruently or cohesively.
Right.
That flourishes what integrity is going to. And I might add, I do know when I'm out of alignment with integrity, I just simply have, my energy feels very distorted or disconnected. I almost feel a lot of resistance or pushback. So that for me, using the piece of awareness to notice how I'm feeling in, physically and emotionally, that also is a foundational piece to, am I in integrity right now? Because that is really important. You can think, have your own little secret thoughts and look and say the part, but yeah, that's part of the depth of it.
Right. And we can talk a little bit later about how we can, what we can do when we notice that we're out of integrity. How can we get back into integrity? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I just want to get this conversations going. And Stephanie, I can see you going through some ruminations there, and I wanted to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, before I get into the ruminations, I want to invite those of you who are listening and watching live to share your thoughts on this, questions you might have about integrity. I'd love to know, as you're listening and watching, what is integrity for you? How do you know when you're in or out of integrity? If you care to share in the little chat box, that would be amazing. You are welcome. So there's something about the idea of integrity that feels very heavy to me. And so my being goes, this feels heavy. What would make it lighter? What would make it lighter?
Well, before you go there, before you answer that question, help me understand what you mean when you say it feels heavy. I'd like to get a sense of what that's all about.
Thank you for that question. So what feels heavy to me in this is that judgment. So I see us use integrity sometimes as a way to judge ourselves or to judge others. Either I'm out of integrity or someone else is out of integrity, and I see it, right? And I really do believe that we are always doing the very best we can based on the information we have and the thinking that looks real to us in that moment. And sometimes that might look, in hindsight, when I have a different state of mind, I might recognize, oh, wow, I really was kind of what I'd call out of integrity. So maybe I was behaving in a way that doesn't align with what I truly believe or what I really want to put into the world. But in the moment, that was the best I could do. So to me, the heaviness comes from the idea of this judgment, and that there is a right or a wrong way to conduct ourselves that can be useful in one sense, because it's one way to motivate ourselves to put ourselves out there in the world in a way that creates things that we want, that aligns with the values, that works towards the purpose that we've stated. On the other hand, I see a lot of people in the spiritual community in particular who beat themselves up for where they're falling short. And I don't think that's helpful. So I have mixed feelings about it. And that's what all these looks on my face are like. What do I want to share here? And how could I express something that lets this be a little bit lighter, that lets us find ease in the path of integrity? And I think, first of all, acceptance is really helpful. Like, the more willing I am to be with all of the parts of my experience, because I have had so many times when, how far did I want to go down this rabbit hole? Do you want me to stay on this? All right, I'm gonna go here, because this is something that I really only recognized maybe like in the last 6 or 8 months, and it's a powerful distinction. So for me, there are 2 different instruments that I have by which to navigate my life. And one is like this internal GPS. It is this knowing inside of me, or this guidance, this wisdom inside of me that says yes or no, right or left. It's like that GPS, right? It's turn by turn, and it's kind of neutral. Like, it's either like the feeling, I can recognize it has a yes or no, but it's not emotional. It's like, yep, I'm doing this. Nope, I'm not doing this. Now, I might take a right turn here, and that's my internal GPS. But then there's like this homing device that is my emotions. So I might have all kinds of emotions about what it means to turn right. So my integrity, as I'm going to define it right now in this moment, is turn right when I know to turn right. But my emotions go, I don't want to turn right. I'm scared to turn right. Or what if somebody blah, 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 or is that really the right thing to do? And all these doubts, right? So I may have tons of emotions around this. My emotions are not an indicator of whether I am on or off track. My internal GPS is. My emotions are telling me that I'm stuck in my thinking. I'm probably overthinking. I'm not in the present. I'm in the future or the past. And it's a reminder for me to come back home and check in with what I know, and come back to now, and come back to this internal GPS and what it's guiding me to do, and trust that. So that to me is, there's something kinder about that, when I just let myself be in the moment and navigate that way. And the distinction between, so the piece that you had said, David, about like when everything is all lined up, I have so many experiences moving through me at any given moment that I don't know if I'm ever completely aligned. It's like, I can follow what I know, or I can do something else. But like trying to get it all, I don't know how to control thoughts and feelings. I seem to have some influence on them, maybe where my attention goes, but I don't think I can control them completely. And when I try, it's exhausting. So like, I'm trying to let this be simpler for myself. And I don't know if any of what I said accomplished that. It may just have muddied the waters further.
Well, first of all, I think it's beautiful what you said. I do.
Yeah.
And I do think we agree, even though we have different ways of saying it. So that's perfectly okay. I want to get back to the heaviness piece. And you talked about this in terms of judgment and how we get on our own case about stuff. And I think that's true regardless of whether we're in integrity or not, personally. I know that in my own case, I'm constantly monitoring and judging, and it happens. And you mentioned acceptance. Well, remember, we talked about acceptance in episode 2. We talked about identity and, getting to know who we really are. We talked about choice. Then we talked about compassion. And then we talked about forgiveness. Then we came to purpose, and now we're talking about integrity. So we use the other tools that we have to support us as we move forward into something that is a powerful tool in my mind. When I say, you talked about the wholeness piece, and I simply use the combination of heart, body, mind, and soul. To me, that is wholeness. And the way they manifest in my life is emotion, thought, word, and action. All right, that's where the whole 4 pieces come into play. So I find that when I can keep those things in alignment, and furthermore in alignment with my purpose, then is my truth. Now, do I always feel like I'm fully in integrity? Many times I will be questioning myself. I'll be saying, am I making the right decision here? Is this actually going to benefit myself and my clients and is it going to create the kind of world that I want to create? And maybe the answer is yes, and maybe the answer is no, and maybe I still don't know the full truth of that. So that's perfectly okay. I don't think of integrity as anything being, let me put it this way. Being in or out of integrity is not in itself a good or a bad thing. It's just a marker. Like you said, you talk about the GPS. And I like to think of it as, if I'm flying in an airplane from Los Angeles to New York, I am off course 100% of the time. And it's the GPS that is constantly correcting so that I can get back on course. But I'm never actually perfectly on course. And I think that's what integrity is for me. It's kind of like that thing that keeps pointing me in the direction. It never errs in the direction. But I have other things going on that might, cause deviations and errors and all kinds of stuff. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that and come back to this acceptance that you were talking about, that it's okay if, all right, so it's not perfect. Great. Let's move on and find a way to enjoy it. So that's how I want to respond to that. Nancy, did you have anything to say about this?
Well, you have me thinking as well about my relationship with integrity and how it came to be for me. But it definitely is a very impactful part of the piece of my life. And the work that I've done, it follows suit with purpose. So now because I've learned, I use being in integrity, I guess, as a marker, emotional marker, and a physical marker if things are meant to be as they are for me. And it's something that I get right some days, other days I don't. And I don't walk in, quote, live in integrity every day, but because I've done the work, the back end work of being present and mindful with all of the underlying pieces, working on self-compassion, forgiveness, recognizing my humanity, that just strengthens the ability to flow and find and define what integrity is and how to use it, how to really have that be a foundational piece of your life, not just something that, I want to be more, want to have more of this, but to know it's a lifestyle. I guess to me, it's a lifestyle piece, but that once it finds its fit in your life, then everything else seems to be in a greater sense of comfortable alignment. So it's just something that I've worked on and worked on and worked on. I guess like all of the other things in life, just a work in progress. But I do like what you said, that initially when I was doing the work, it did have some heavier feelings like, I'm holding this as a piece to judge myself, or others. And that in itself was, I guess, more work to be done to, why am I using this as a judgment piece? What makes it so, Yeah.
Well, okay, so then let's ask the question, what's wrong with judgment anyway?
That's a good question. It depends on how you're using it, right? If to me, it depends on how I'm using it. If it's to come up with a solution or to elevate the status or empower, excellent. But if it's marginalizing or self-deprecating, then it just depends on what is that judgment.
Exactly. So it's one thing to look at a situation and say, this is not working. That's a judgment right there.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at the situation and saying, this is not working. Something needs to change. Okay. Are you judging yourself when you do that? Are you judging other people when you do that? See, this is where I think we have made the mistake of making judgment. We've demonized the word judgment. And judgment is a very powerful tool that we have access to. We can use it in many, many different ways. And yes, we can use it to hurt ourselves and to hurt other people. But we don't have to. We can use it as a way of helping us to see what's going on in our lives and how we can improve those things. So maybe there's another word that would work better in that case, like maybe assessment or, interpretation or conclusion or something like that. But ultimately, it still comes down to the same thing. We're noticing a situation, and then we're analyzing it in some way and deciding about some aspect or change that we want to make. To me, that encompasses the nature of judgment too, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm judging myself, if I'm saying, oh, you're a bad person, you're not good enough, you're this, you're that, whatever, you're an idiot, any kind of word that comes up where I'm talking about a person, I think that's the kind of judgment that obviously we want to avoid as much as possible. So in that sense, if there's a way for us to come up with two different words to describe those two things, I'd be happy with that. But
So one word that I've heard used that has a slightly different meaning is discernment. It's sort of like the ability to discern between things, and it doesn't suggest the same quality of coming to a conclusion or making a decision, or like decision meaning like chopping off other options, right? Decide,
right.
That like discerning is more like awareness. It's a little broader. It still it still makes a choice, but it's not quite as all of these things. And this is what bugs me out in a lot of this, and especially things around integrity, is that all of these, we have stories about what these things mean. So integrity, discernment, judgment, all of these things are concepts. They are made up of thought. They're stories that we tell, and we each tell our own individually. What does it mean to us? And then we tell some societally. There are conditioned stories about what each of these things mean, but in and of themselves, they don't exist. They're completely made up. And so what I'm most interested in is, what is integrity for you? Or what is integrity for me? And how can you make that up in a way that helps you in your life and in the world, that works for you, that supports you, that's nurturing, and it doesn't have to look the same for me or for you. So I think that conversation about what is integrity, like I love hearing you talk about it, Nancy, because when you talk about it, I can tell that you're living this, you're experiencing this. It's probably growing and evolving as you do. Like in the beginning, it felt like more a judgment, and now it doesn't feel that way. Now it feels like a way to live your purpose in the world. I'm like, that's beautiful. And David, you've talked about this. Like I use it as a tool to maintain alignment, to keep myself moving towards knowing that I'm never going to be fully in alignment, but to keep myself moving towards that direction that I've chosen, or that has chosen me, or that maybe both. And for me, I'm like, geez, do I need integrity? Do I need this concept of integrity? This is what I ask myself. Like, do I need integrity to know this idea, this concept called integrity, to know what is mine to do, what's aligned in the moment? And I'm not sure that I do. I think it's something that's useful to talk about, but that's kind of, it feels like a radical thing to say, but either I know what to do in the moment or I don't, whether I talk about it in terms of integrity or not.
Right.
That was odd. That came out of my mouth. I told you I was going to say things like, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth today, David.
Well, and what comes out of your mouth is exactly what needs to be spoken in that moment. So, it's perfectly okay. I see Jackie just offered this thought that the author of Further Along the Road Less Traveled talks about recognizing the distinction between neurotic guilt and existential guilt. And I find those interesting terms, neither of which actually resonate for me. Would either of you like to comment on those terms? I mean, I can see neurotic guilt. That's something that I make up for myself. It's my own what's going on in my head. Existential guilt sounds like something external, something that somebody else decides that I am guilty or not. And the only place I can see that happening is in a court of law. I don't believe that even a court of law is capable of deciding whether someone is guilty or not. We simply have to make a decision based on the existing evidence, and that's really it. So I guess I'm not really resonating with the term of guilt in the first place. I have some challenges with that whole notion. So, and I'm not quite sure how it fits in with the discussion of integrity in the first place, although it ties in with the self-judgment portion that we've been discussing for this point.
Well, I would also think that, I guess the word guilt, if you are working with the emotions or the energy of guilt, then you are wrestling perhaps with some integrity, right? Mm-hmm. That you have this uncleared, unanswered, or unknown stuff within you that is creating a gap between that integrity and purpose and flow that would need to be looked at or addressed to have that cleared. Because guilt implies a little bit to me, like when I've had guilt in my life, whatever, about family, friends, or work, that may be something I again, a thought, a word, an action were not fluidly aligned, giving me that felt thing of guilt or the judgment of guilt.
Sure. Yeah.
No, it ties in with that for sure.
Right. And so now I see Jackie's added an explanation to, she wanted to be able to practice asking herself, is my suffering existential or neurotic? Now, those are good questions. That is a good question for sure. Is this pain enhancing my existence or is it limiting? Great questions. And I believe that they are heart-opening questions. So yeah, I would encourage you to keep asking that. And they do, I think, help you find your way back to integrity if you can answer those things from a place of heart, not so much from a place of your head.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yep. I guess that's how it starts, is by noticing those areas in you that bubble up and spending time compassionately and patiently exploring them to get through instead of reacting to them, like I enjoyed doing for so long, working to respond. What is this and why is it here? And I want to open this up so that I can have more options and see things more and move into things. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is, I just like to address guilt a little bit here. There are two feelings that people have, guilt and shame. And they're not pure emotions, either one of them. They're combinations of thought, sensation, and emotion, and we give them one word to describe them. And the difference, I think, between guilt and shame is guilt can be articulated as I did something wrong. And shame is more about I am wrong. So you see how we take the shame and we put it on ourselves and we make ourselves wrong rather than noticing that we did something wrong. It's quite a different attitude and quite a different feeling that comes about. When I recognize that I may have done something wrong, I can still make corrections. I can still go and make amends. But when I am wrong, that's when I start beating myself up and I start pushing down, and I really have a hard time getting out of that mindset. So it's really important to make the distinction between these two and to understand. I mean, we can go in a whole conversation on those topics, and maybe we will in a later time. Just wanted to bring some attention to that, because when you experience guilt, thinking I did something wrong, really you can look at the question, am I in some way out of integrity? Have I gotten myself out of integrity? And now the answer to that question has to come about, because you got to look at, all right, well, what did I commit to? What did I agree to? What were the things that I said I was going to do? Did I honor those? So maybe you're not out of integrity at all, and you really have no reason for this guilt in the first place. But you may have slipped out of integrity, in which case we can find a way to help you get back into it. And that's really the beauty of this whole discussion. I mean, integrity is a powerful, powerful force, and all of us have access to it, and we can use it at any time. So, but I also want to come back to what Stephanie said: gentleness, love, compassion, forgiveness, and acceptance.
Yeah, I think that if any of these things, if Jackie, for you, this question of asking, is my suffering existential or is it neurotic? If that is helpful for you as a way of navigating your path, then by all means do that. Choose that. I think that, beyond what I or anyone else might say, if that's what your own wisdom is moving you towards and it's useful, then use it. I think that if something feels like it's not, it doesn't have that compassion and it doesn't have that kindness and reverence and care for yourself and others, then there's maybe cause to look at that tool or the way you're using the tool. At least for me, that's like, something about this doesn't feel like, I don't know. I've moved through a lot of different ways of being with this stuff from way back when, being growing up in fundamental Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity, where there was a right way to do things and there was a wrong way to do things, and there was lots of guilt and shame that I was experiencing as a result of it, to kind of moving into this righteous anger and empowerment and shoving that away. And I'm not going to listen to anybody or anything. And it was kind of like a rebellion, right? And then eventually moving into a lot of personal development tools. I'm like, okay, I'm now empowered to change these things. Like, I can find my limiting beliefs and change them and use this tool and this tool and this tool to do that. And I was so like rolling up my sleeves every day, like, okay, what are the limiting beliefs I'm going to tackle and acknowledge today? And then one day that completely shifted, because I saw that all of these things that I was calling limiting beliefs are thoughts that are transient, that are changing, like our emotions do. And I started playing with this idea of, what if I don't need to change any of them? What if I don't have to do anything with them? What if they're just going to move? So now this is a new adventure. And I think, like, I noticed something, I'm feeling icky. And my normal way of being with this, and it's most people, it's totally natural. It's like, okay, what's making me feel icky? And then I look around. Was it this thought that I had? Or was it an unacknowledged thought? Or is it this person over there? Is it that thing that just happened to me? And what I'm realizing,
all of which are thoughts and judgments, by the way, because you're projecting the experience outward.
Right. It's like, it's a thought, whether I can acknowledge it and pinpoint it or not, whether I give a name to it or not. And I used to think I needed to do something with that, but what if I don't? So now I'm playing with and experimenting in my own life. What if I don't do that? And what if I just come back to what I know? And sometimes it does still make sense to me to do something. It might be like, okay, journal about this, or use this particular tool to reframe it, ask a question, ask a different question, examine it, talk about it. But other times it's like, nope, just let yourself experience it and let it go.
Sure.
So it's just a different way of looking at it that I think it's useful to notice for yourself what's working and what's not. Notice for yourself what makes sense, and perhaps find a guide like us or one of us to help along that way, to help you navigate in your own path.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I see, again, I let you open your mouth and magic comes out.
You let me open my mouth, huh?
I have that much control. Yes.
You may open your mouth now, for it is written.
Right. Well, and that's what this is all about. It's an organic creation that's happening here right now. And it always amazes me, the different stuff that comes out. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. And I like to think that I have my own level of brilliance and beauty, but when there's 2 or 3 or 4 people coming together and sharing from their heart, it's magnified by just a huge amount. I mean, it's way, way better than it could ever be by a solo presenter, I think.
Yeah, we are co-creating, definitely.
Co-creating. This bubbled up as all of we were sharing. So maybe for my journey of developing and growing integrity at a soul level, which is ongoing, I think I compartmentalized integrity or honesty, thinking that, okay, I'm going to be honest in my dealings with others at work or showing up, to do this. So that, okay. But what I wasn't handling, because I didn't know what I didn't know, was my integrity with myself. So I had one area where I was deemed, trustworthy, reliable, responsible, and that felt really good to hit all the markers. So I guess I was showing up with integrity with my profession and career, but I wasn't at the time doing that with myself, because what you said, my external stuff looked to be fine, but it was that internal dialogue, those emotions and thoughts that were completely out of alignment, and that created a lot of conflict in me that you couldn't tell by looking at me. But when you brought that up, I'm like, so there's all these different levels of how to integrate and be a person with full integrity. That takes a lifetime, really, because it's a journey. But you can have integrity in some aspects of your life as a starting point, and then maybe those are going to illuminate the door, which is what mine did, to grow that in me, to foster that in me. So that's something that people are like, oh, do you have integrity in your profession or at the workplace or with your clients? Most of us would like to say, of course, but do we have that with ourselves?
Yeah, great question. And it brings me to this idea that so far we have been speaking about integrity somewhat in the abstract as a concept. And here's what I mean. People ask, well, how do I know if I'm in integrity or not? And well, one of the things that you can do, let's just look at some of the concrete examples that you have in your life. All of us, without exception, we all make agreements with people. And sometimes we write those agreements down, and sometimes we just verbalize them. Now, when I write an agreement down, to me, that now becomes a commitment. Agreement is still kind of a commitment. When I say I'm going to do something, I've kind of committed to it. But when it's only verbal, then I've just said it to you. You may have a different understanding of what I meant than what I actually said. But when it's written down, then we can both look at it and say, this is exactly what the commitment is, you see? So there's that distinction that we can make. But let's just talk about the unwritten agreements that we have. That if I make an agreement with you to do something, and that includes something simple like just showing up at a lunch date or something like that at a particular time. Well, if I show up 20 minutes late, I'm out of integrity because my agreement was to be there at a particular time. Now, I may be out of integrity for a variety of reasons. There may be some external circumstances over which I had no control, like maybe traffic was so bad or I got caught in an accident or some weird stuff like that. However, when that happens, almost all of us carry cell phones now. There's no reason why I couldn't call you and tell you that I was running late. You see, there's all kinds of things that we can do and choices that we make at every step of our lives that either put us in integrity or out of integrity. You see? So all we have to do is raise our awareness, become more discerning, more aware, and then allow ourselves. I said, I've made this agreement. I have made this agreement, and in my own mind, I have to finish this agreement. Now, if I don't like the agreement for some reason, I decide, this is really not working for me, and I do it anyway, then I'm kind of sort of out of integrity with myself in that case. Not necessarily with the agreement, but with myself. But on the other hand, if I recognize that I'm not liking the terms of this agreement, I can always come to you and say, this really isn't working for me. I'd like to renegotiate. I can do that. I can still remain in integrity. And if you agree with my renegotiation, now we have a new agreement that voids the first one. You see what I'm saying? So all of this is about, does integrity even matter if I'm not in relationship with people? If I'm not interacting with people? Then all my integrity is just with myself, correct?
Yeah,
but if I'm going to be interacting with people, then I'm going to be making agreements, I'm going to be making commitments, and I can easily tell when I'm in or out of integrity with respect to those agreements. You see? This is important. So you can always renegotiate an agreement at any time if you don't like the way it's going, or maybe you've learned something new about yourself and decided that's not the kind of stuff I want to be involved in anymore. And so you want to maybe stop those agreements that are currently in power or whatever in your life. So agreements and commitments are extremely important mechanisms for evaluating. There's a good word. That's not judgmental, but it's evaluating. Evaluating my level of integrity. I can use those tools for that purpose. Sorry, ranted a little bit.
Well, that's definitely more peeling back the levels and layers of how integrity flows in all of life. But I guess I come back to yes, you can work to move into integrity if you have agreements with others about showing up someplace and work to fix that. But you're saying if you're by yourself.
Well, I'm just saying if I don't have any relationships, and I don't believe there's a person on the planet who doesn't have any relationships, I'm just saying if we assume such a situation exists, then integrity only has to deal with myself and my relationship to my environment, I guess.
Yes. But then it's going to carry itself through you. So if you don't have that connection or you're in the process of learning integrity or bringing it in, it can definitely be something that's going to block you or stop you in a way that from becoming, if you're not aware that this is something that you would like to work on. Or so it's got many layers for sure. Like I said, I wasn't initially aware. I initially thought my integrity had to do with my externals, like the agreements or contracts or showing up.
Sure. Yeah.
And it wasn't until something occurred that got my attention, that caught my awareness, that I had the desire to begin to go inward and work on. But and then that other question is, okay, you're aware that something's going on. Well, then what? I think a lot of people get stuck and they just kind of keep, circling around, not knowing that they have permission to take that deep dive, or not knowing how to go. But again, there's not a magic formula or solution. Like your story, Stephanie, of how you found your relationship with integrity is completely different than mine and David. So that's the beautiful piece, that we're all so different. We're going to use our self-awareness, and you, Jackie, as well, to find out what it looks like and feels like for you, I guess, your process.
You know, there's something that I was thinking about in the context of integrity today, because I recognize an area where I was like, oh, I was actually out of integrity with what I believe and how I normally want to conduct myself. So this one was like a family blind spot. There's someone in my family who I was talking about in a way that was not really very compassionate, that was actually kind of making fun of them in a lighthearted way. But I recognized that there was something behind it, that for one, it was my attempt to deal with something that was kind of painful for me, actually, by just making it into a joke. But it wasn't kind. It wasn't kind.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until afterward I was like, do I really want to behave that way? Do I really want to put those words out? Now, this person doesn't know anything about it, has nothing. And my behavior, other than the words that came out of my mouth, as far as this other person goes, my behavior is unknown to them. It's not out of integrity as far as they could see, probably. But something about it was like, yeah, I would like to be more aware of this and choose something different, because it doesn't seem aligned. Like in that moment, I was just caught up in it. Reflecting upon it, I'm like, something, but I don't really feel like I'm beating myself up over it either, because for one, what's the point?
Well, it's like you were saying at the beginning. All right, I just see that I'm not quite aligned with how I want to be. All right, make a left turn here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, come on back.
Right. And I think what I want to say about what you just said, this is really, really important. You could simplify what you just said down to this. I have a personal agreement with myself to treat everybody with respect and love and compassion. That's my personal value system, my code of ethics, if you like. I didn't say it to anybody. I don't need to say it to anybody. So the moment I start noticing myself speaking, making fun of somebody, whatever, I can trigger myself. Oh, I am out of integrity with my own agreement. You see, I can correct that. And so there's nothing wrong with being out of integrity, any more than there's anything wrong with making an adjustment while you're steering your car to stay on course. Okay? So when notice you're out of integrity, that's beautiful, because now you're starting to be more aware of how you truly want to show up. Anytime you feel like you might be slightly out of alignment, rejoice. Say, oh, thank you, because now you know that you're becoming more aware with each moment, which means your consciousness is elevating. And you're going to start showing up in a way that more and more people are going to be drawn to you and attracted to you and want to get some of your energy. Okay? This is, it's beautiful. I'm glad you said that, Stephanie, because again, more wisdom. See?
Yeah.
I let you open your mouth and more wisdom comes out.
Thank God you let me open my mouth. What would we do?
And I'm looking at her very interesting comment again by Jackie that says, I've been living with a lot of anxiety surrounding making commitments, because a part of me thinks, what if I need something different when the time comes? So that is a very beautiful comment. Again, I think that speaks to me of you being in the process of figuring out, discerning what is your personal integrity, that you can find comfort and decrease the anxiety about making a commitment. So it sounds like you were deep in the process, Jackie, of exploring your own personal relationship with what integrity is, with your commitment and agreement and relationship, that you're having resistance or anxiety with this making a commitment or not wanting to, because what if I need something different? And from a place, like you said, of compassion and curiosity and concern to get to that. Yeah.
And I think there's actually something deeper here that Jackie's alluding to.
Yeah.
I think she's implying some kind of situation and making a commitment to another person, some kind of a relationship situation. And I know that in my life, I often, when I was much younger, I avoided making commitments that unless I knew that I was going to get some approval, some love out of it. Because I had given up my understanding of who I really am in order to please other people. So everything I was doing was coming from a place of my shadow need to be seen and heard and loved and all the rest of that stuff. And so my commitments were kind of shadowy too, and it took me a while to understand that that's what I was doing. And in the process of growing out of that, I came to learn that I can love myself. I don't really need this external love. I can approve myself. I don't need external approval. But it took me a while to get there. And once I got there, I was able to stand more confidently in the truth of who I am. And I was able to say to somebody, no, that's not going to work for me. And once I was able to say no, and people were able to hear my no and understand that I was serious, then when I said yes, they knew I meant it. You see? So I had to learn how to set boundaries for myself by honoring the truth of who I really am. And that was a long process. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't that, people had tried to tell me about this, but of course I was so stuck in my own stuff, I didn't always hear it. It wasn't until many years of work that I was finally able to get to that place. Now, I don't know if maybe some people can get there very quickly. I mean, Stephanie's amazing. She's there in 5 seconds. It's awesome.
Way to go.
I think that there was something that both that Jackie said and that I heard from you, David, around, this is how I heard it. It's not exactly how you said it. Like, I don't have to make myself wrong. There is a part of me. There's an experience that I have often when I recognize I'm out of integrity or, oh, geez, I really don't want to do that. That is judgy towards myself. That is, oh, I'm wrong. And like, what if it's just as simple as I'm driving a car and, I have those little like lane warnings, beep, 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 beep. Like, it's just my car telling me like, just adjust your steering a little bit. You're starting to drift. Right. Come on back. And it's just part of how it works. It doesn't mean anything is going wrong. In fact, as you said, David, or as I heard from what you said, it means everything's going right. Like you just got it. You just noticed it. Like, hello, thank you. Thank you. Beautiful universe and wisdom. Like, don't beat myself up over it. Like that just means the system is working exactly as it's supposed to.
Exactly. Well, we're almost up to an hour here. And there was one part I wanted to touch on, and that's the whole part of getting back into integrity. But that's a fairly lengthy discussion unto itself. So maybe we can do that on another episode, because I just don't want to overwhelm people with information on this. And I also wanted to say, for everybody who's watching the recording or who's live here, this has been I think this is episode number 8 or 9. I can't remember. This is number 8, I think. And Stephanie's been with us the whole time. It's been absolutely amazing to have you here. And now Stephanie has decided to move on and do something else. So this is going to be her last episode. I could have mentioned that at the beginning, but I wanted to save it till the end just so we could share some love for Stephanie, for the amazing person she is and the gifts she's brought here.
Oh, thank you, David. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure working with you, Stephanie. You're such a bright light and just full of fun energy and wonderful commentary and food for thought. I've learned a lot being in your presence and sharing space with you here on Soul Empowerment. And I know your next area that you're moving into is already fabulous and going to be even more fantastic.
It's going to be fabulouser.
more fabulouser.
More fabulous, sir. Thank you
And
so
I know
much.
that our paths are going to cross again because, you know, you're just an amazing being and you're meant to be in my life. I know that. So and I'm
you're
looking
gonna
forward.
allow me to keep speaking in your life. So like,
Yeah.
Well, you know, I might give you a few moments here and there but it's all part of the beautiful journey that we share together, this journey of soul empowerment, of personal growth, of trying to be the most amazing people that we can be. And, you know, I think one of the things I want to remind people, and I say this a lot in all my presentations, you are a divine, magnificent, unlimited spiritual being of light and love. And like the rest of us, you just happen to be sharing this brief human experience. And let's just love each other, because that's what makes it work. And that's what makes it so much more enjoyable. So that's what I want to say.
Ditto. Wow, it's been another fantastic show today. I really appreciate all of you guys and all the learning that I got to receive by being here.
Yeah.
yes, very grateful. Thank you.
So do you have any final words you'd like to share, Stephanie, before we close out?
What comes? Oh, yeah, I have appreciated so much sharing this space with you both today and in the past. I see something new and I learn something new every time we show up here. I hear myself say things I have never heard myself say before, which is part of the fun of being in co-creation conversationally with people. That happens all the time. And I'm like, wow, that was interesting. I never would have said that sitting in my room by myself. So I couldn't be more grateful for the energy of you, for the energy of the listeners, and Jackie in particular today, who's been sharing so much with us. Thank you. It's helpful to all of us. It's definitely helpful to me.
Right. All right. Well, Nancy and Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. Wish you both the very best, and wish you all who are watching and participating, thank you for being with us. Much love and blessings on your journey.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.